So let's recall what we have learned. I'm just going to tell you the main points which we have learned before in the previous sessions. So we are talking about first of all the point France abolishes monarchy and becomes a republic. Earlier we have seen in the Constitution of 1791 signed by the Louis XVI, France became constitutional monarchy. Yes, monarch remained as the head of the nation. However, all the power shifted from monarch to the National Assembly. In short, what we call that constitutional monarchy, as well as we have learned the political system of the constitutional monarchy. And in the last session, we have discussed about France that abolished monarchy and became a republic. How did it? So we have seen the situation Louis XVI secretly negotiating with the neighboring empire, Prussia, and King of Prussia and other neighboring countries wanted to roll back the changes which already happened in the France, right? And during this time in April 1792, National Assembly passed vote and declared the war against the Prussia. And people wanted to continue the revolution because, as we know, that before in the Constitution of 1791, only the richer sections of the society they only got their political right. Active citizens, men 25 and above with the property. So commoners they wanted to get their rights. So they began to gather in a political club to discuss, to debate, as well as to plan, right, for program, for further actions. So political clubs were set up all around France. Among the most successful was Jacobins, the Jacobins, which got the name from the former convent of Saint Jacob in Paris. Now convent is kind of a complex community building, and that community basically devoted to religious life. That is called convent, especially in Christianity. So uh, this name, the Jacobins, they got from the Saint Jacob of Paris. Women were active throughout the period and formed their own club, women's club. And about their women's club and their participation, we shall learn in this chapter in upcoming topics. Then we have seen about the leader of the Jacobins, Maximilian Robespierre, right? Leaders of Jacobins, as well as we have seen that those people decided to wear strip trousers, like dock workers. Dock workers, people those who work at shipyard at dock to load and unload the ships, called dock workers. So dock workers used to wear stripped trousers. So those people, members of Jacobins Club, those who belong to that common class, like those were shopkeepers, artisans, like shoemakers, pastry cook, watchmakers, painters, etc. So those people decided to wear stripped trousers, simple, because that time richer sections of the society in France, those people wore knee breeches. Those people wore knee breeches, so they decided not to become like them, right? And unlike knee breeches, especially in the noble sections of the society, right? And those people now known as sansclotters. Who known as sansclotters? Those who wore strip trousers. That means those without knee breeches. Last time I show you knee breeches, right? Now more about it. The summer 1792, Jacobins plan an insurrection of a large number of Parisians who were angered by the short supplies of high prices of food. Insurrection is like that violent uprising against the system, against the government. So Jacobins decided insurrections, right, with a large number of Parisians, those who were angered because of shortage in supplies as well as high prices of food. On the morning of August 10, they stormed the palace of the Tuileries. They stormed, attack on the palace of Tuileries where the king lived, and they massacred the king's guard and held the king himself as hostage for several hours. Then later the assembly, National Assembly, voted to imprison of the royal family. National Assembly decided to imprison the royal family, the Bourbon dynasty. And then they imprisoned them. Elections were held. From now on, all men above 21 years and above, regardless of wealth, got the right to vote. As we know, before, men with property, men 25 and above with property, they had right to vote. Women didn't have right to vote. Children, youth, and men without property didn't have right to vote. Those were considered as passive citizens, which we have seen before. Now all the men 21 and above, right, got the right to vote. However, women haven't got, had not got right to vote yet. The newly elected assembly was called the convention. Newly elected assembly was called the convention. On 21st September 1792, it abolished the monarchy and declared France a republic. 21 September, so it's like 1.5 months, right? 10th August, the storm on the palace of Tuileries. So it's like about 1.5 month later, they abolished that monarchy in the France and declared France as a republic. As you know about the republic, republic is form of government where people elect head of the nation. Generally, head of the nation, the first citizen of the nation, can be like an elected person or the hereditary system. In monarchical form of government, generally hereditary system. So France became a republic nation. Now on, people of France got the right to elect their head of the nation. Now, what about the Louis XVI? So, Louis XVI was sentenced to death by a court on the charge of treason. Court charges on Louis XVI charges of treason. Treason means like betrayal of one's own country. If you betray your own country's government, that is called treason. So they charged the treason on Louis XVI, and on 21st January 1793, he was executed publicly at the Place de la Concorde, that place known as de la Concorde. Louis XVI executed, where the Louis XVI executed, and the Queen Marie Antoinette faced the same fate, so she also got executed shortly after. This is how that Bourbon dynasty of France ended up. Now France declared a republic, so obviously France became a republic nation. And time after that, 1793 to 1794, next year, following year, is referred to as the Reign of Terror. Why? Because France became a republic. That should be like a happy time, peace, prosperity, right? Instead of peace and prosperity, that period referred to as the reign of terror. Let's see why. If you remember, just I said that leader of the Jacobins, Maximilian Robespierre. So Robespierre became the head, and Robespierre followed a policy of severe control and punishment. He wanted to keep his powers over the France. So he used the different strategy of severe control and punishment. So all those whom he saw as being enemies of republic, whom he saw, remember, his vision, not the real enemy. Yes, possibly many of them were the real enemy of the France, Republic France. However, whom he saw as the enemy, who were they, like ex-noble, now no longer nobles, those who were ex-nobles and clergy, more members of other political parties, even members of his own political party, but who did not agree with him. He did not agree with him. They did not agree with him because of his matters. So all those people were arrested, right, imprisoned, and then tried by case in the revolutionary tribunal. And if the court found them guilty, they were guillotined. Now, what is guillotine? Guillotine was a device consisting two poles and a blade, which a person is beheaded. I am going to show you guillotine. Just give me a second. So, example of guillotine. Can you see on your screen the device? This device is guillotine, and it was like used by the Robespierre. And why that is called guillotine? Because it was named after the Dr. Guillotine who invented it. That is the machine. See, you can see that we are punishing a person on guillotine. Understood guillotine? Now let's continue. So Robespierre issued laws placing a maximum ceiling on wages and prices. So Robespierre government gained control on wages as well as prices of food mainly. Meat and bread were rationed. Peasants were forced to transport their grains to the cities and sell it at all, right, at fixed prices, and prices fixed by the government. Unlike before, they were sold to those mediators, and mediator later sold to that wholesalers. It was the different system. Now under new system, they were forced to sell in the city, and where in city price fixed by the government. More the use the use of more expensive white flour was forbidden. You know that to make bread, different kind of flour can be used even today also. So that time that white flour, high quality of flour used by those rich people, which became that forbidden, virgin. So all citizens were required to eat that pain de galette. Pain de egalette, that means equality bread, or also known as bread of equality. A loaf of bread that made of whole wheat. Equality was also sought to be practiced through form of speech and address, the way people address. Before in the France, you know that the different sections of the society, so that higher sections of the society were addressed like Monsieur and Madame, like that means Sir and Madam. Now all French men and women were henceforth became citoyen and citoyenne, citizen, all citizen, no sir, no boss, no madam. Churches were shut down and their buildings converted into barracks or offices. Before you know that clergy were on top and church had power, political power, economical power. Now most of the churches were shut down and their buildings were utilized for government offices as well as for the military barracks. Robespierre pursued his policy. So even his supporters began to demand moderation. It was like too conservative. People that wanted that little liberalism, little moderation. So he couldn't rule the France for the long. So he was convicted by a court in July 1794, arrested, and on the next day he was also sent to guillotine. This is about the reign of terror, how started in 1793 and ended up. And next changes, you know that within short period of time, too many changes in the French society, in the French politics. Next changes we shall discuss in the next session. Okay, thanks so much for joining.